Next, we are going to learn about personification. Once again, maybe you've heard of this or used it before in analysis and English classes, maybe not. Either way, we're going to go over it together here. Personification defined is when something that isn't human is given human characteristics. You see the word person is in it, okay? So if you personify something, then that means you kind of make it into a person with words in some way. So let's look at examples. That's the easiest way to understand it. Lightning danced across the sky. All right, obviously dancing is a human phenomenon that we created to express ourselves. I guess some biologists might argue that other animals dance for pleasure the way that we do. But certainly lightning doesn't literally dance, okay? Figuratively it dances, and we can envision what the writer of this sentence means, okay? The wind howled in the night, okay? Howling is something with vocal cords, howls, okay? Actually, maybe that might be more of an animal characteristic than it is a human. Of course, people can howl. I will not demonstrate for you, though. The car complained as the key was turned. Okay, cars can't literally complain, but we get the gist. We understand that the car's having a hard time turning over. Rita heard the last piece of pie calling her name. All right, Rita, let's be honest. You really just want the pie. Okay, it's not calling your name. If you literally hear pie calling your name, you should probably go check yourself in somewhere. Okay, so these are all examples of personification. Okay, so how do we analyze these? These are the questions that you should answer in your analysis. What human quality is given to the non-human? And what does it mean for this non-human to have this trait? So, what would that look like here? Okay, the pie in this last example, which human trait is the pie given? It's given the ability to talk, okay, to convince somebody to come eat it, which is really pretty dark if you think about it. Why in the world would something want to be eaten? But anyway, so the second follow-up question here was, what does it mean for this non-human to have this trait? In other words, why would this writer put it in these terms? Okay, so basically what this means is that the pie is so appealing to Rita that it was almost as if it were calling her name. So it makes the reader feel that the pie is completely irresistible. Okay? And you know pie is delicious, so you can understand that. Alright, so let's look at how I did this. This is when I had moved on to read the other book. So you can see in the other examples I put HP to signify which of the two books I was quoting. So the first two are HP, which is short for Harry Potter. Okay. So, but my personification is when I was reading The Wheel on the School. So I specified by putting that behind the quotes. So please do that if you're reading more than one book or you're pulling your examples from more than one independent reading book. So here's the example I found in this book, which, by the way, this book is, I just love it so much. It's about this, I don't know exactly when it's set. It's set a long time ago, okay? It was definitely before any type of technology existed. And it's this little Dutch village and this little tiny school that only has like 8 kids in it. And they get obsessed with the idea of getting storks to land and nest where they live in their village. And so they collect these wagon wheels to put on top of their pointy roofs so that the storks will build nests on top of their roofs. I know it sounds really weird, but it's such a good book. So there's a little bit of context for you. So the quote is, "Now the wheel lay ready to be lowered." So even more context. These kids have to look so hard for wagon wheels that aren't currently in use on a wagon. And they desperately want them because they desperately want to convince the storks to come to Shora, which is where they live. So they've been hunting and hunting. Now this kid is all by himself, and he found this old ancient wagon wheel, but it's up in a barn with a rope, and it's very heavy. Wagon wheels are heavy as can be. So he's trying to figure out how to lower it down all by himself. A little bitty kid, you know. So that's kind of what's happening. Anyway, personification. Why is this personification? Well, he describes the wheel as laying and being ready to be lowered, which to me read as personification, as if the wheel had some ability to be ready or not. Okay, that's a human quality. So let's answer our analysis questions. What human quality is given to the non-human? So here, a wagon wheel is, let's use a fancy word, imbued with the ability to be ready for something to happen to it, which is a human quality. Because wagons don't have a mind. I should put that. Wagons don't have minds, and therefore can't think about being ready or not. All right. What does it mean for this non-human to have this trait? So this is, the author's last name is De Jong. So whenever you're talking about an author, if you're not going to use their first and last name, then use their last name. Never just use an author's first name. So I can say De Jong perhaps wanted to give the wagon a bit of personality. The wagon wheel, I should say. Yeah, I keep saying wagon, but it's wagon wheel. Because it's so important to the story. So maybe the wagon wheel is almost its own character because it's so important, and that's why De Jong put this little flair in, gave it a little bit of a personality by giving it a human quality or trait. So let's get into our explanation of how the context of the story influences my analysis here. So I kind of told you this about the book, but I'd say because it is so important to the children that they find a wagon wheel that they can put on the school to attract storks. This scene is very exciting. So they have weird names because they, like I said, they live in Holland, and they live a long time ago. So Ilka is this character's name that found this wagon wheel. Ilka is all alone and finds a wagon wheel. So he has nobody to help him. Perhaps he has wishful thinking and he thinks that the wheel is ready for him in a way that will make his lowering it by himself a bit easier. The wheel is so significant that it is given a human characteristic. Let's reread our writing. It's always a good idea to taste your writing. Because it is so important to the children that they find a wagon wheel that they can put on the school to attract storks, this scene is very exciting. Yoka is all alone and finds a wagon wheel, so he has nobody to help him. Perhaps he has wishful thinking when he thinks that the wheel is, quote, ready for him in a way that will make his lowering it by himself a bit easier. The wheel is so significant that it is given a human characteristic. I'm going to add as if it is a character in the story and not just an object. All right. So that is very briefly what personification is, examples of it, how to analyze it, and an example of an analysis and explanation.